Hello people, I talked about assholes previously. This video is gonna focus on what you can do to avoid damages from them. I came up with strategies that help me survive assholes. I put them on the list and I'm gonna share this list with you. So let's get to the point and come check out what I got. Number 1. Cut them off is the best possible thing you can do. If you have choices, this will always be your first choice. When you cut them off, you guarantee that assholes cannot interact with you. Because interaction is a connection between you and an asshole. Connection is a medium that an asshole can only use to hurt you physically and mentally. When you destroy that connection, they are done. They can no longer do anything to you. This is straightforward and the most effective solution. If you have an asshole boss at your workplace, you can either leave your job or you can kick your boss away. This one is quite tricky because your boss is typically the one who has more power than you. And later in this video, I'm going to talk about possible ways you can deal with your boss power. If your friend is an asshole, what you should do is to unfriend and cut off every possible form of contact to make sure that your friend can no longer reach out to you. At this point, I believe you must have a doubt in your mind. You must be questioning how practical and realistic this solution can be. Like to leave a job, I know is not easy for many people. I agree, and you shouldn't take this decision lightly. Perhaps you probably encounter a new asshole at a new workplace. This is a risk that you should keep in mind, and this option is not for everyone. If asshole you deal with is so bad that you can no longer take it, then this should be the best and most effective solution to you. Before you make this kind of decision, it's very important for you to list out all possible benefits and the costs. Think of all the goods and bads. Once you realize this option will bring you more benefits than the costs, go for this option. Otherwise, look for a better alternative. To help you make a better informed decision, I want to tell you that there are two kinds of assholes, certified and temporary assholes. For temporary assholes, sometimes I call them part-time assholes. Most of the time, they behave nicely, but they can be toxic in rare occasion. Usually when they act like an asshole, they don't mean it. They behave that way because of many reasons. It can be stress, or it can be that they are having a bad day. So if someone is usually a nice person, when they act like an asshole, they regret what they have done, they come to apologize to you, and they don't do this often. you can assume that this person is just a temporary asshole. In fact, anybody can be a temporary asshole, including you and me. I gotta admit that I used to be toxic to someone else at some point. I regretted what I had done. I went back to apologize and move on and try my best not to repeat the same mistake. Most likely, temporary assholes, like I just described, won't cause you much trouble. What you really need to worry about is a certified asshole. Whenever I say asshole in the video, I mean I refer to certified asshole. We can call them full-time asshole, professional asshole, or whatever what you want to call them. This kind of people act toxic to you without a second thought. They are rude, they misbehave, and they treat you like dirt. They get really comfortable doing that to you, and they will never hesitate to do it again. Certified asshole is what you really need to do something about. So before you cut someone off from your life, you need to know if that person is certified or temporarily asshole. Option number 2, keep the distance. If you can't cut off an asshole permanently, at least you can keep the distance away from them, and it does help a lot. Physical distance matters. Suppose the distance between you and an asshole is d apart. The damage you get from this asshole is inversely proportional to distance d. In other words, the longer the distance, the less damage you will receive from this asshole. One of the ways to do this is to change your daily routine in your favor. You can adjust your daily schedule in a way that makes you encounter an asshole less often. Even if you have no choice and can't really avoid an asshole at your workplace, you can set up a barrier between you and an asshole. It can be something like a partition to separate you and them. It will at least block the line of sight so that an asshole cannot easily spot you. Remember, the goal is to minimize the interaction with an asshole to avoid damage. This option is to set a physical limit that reduces the chance of interaction. In addition to having space boundary I have said above, you can also set time boundaries. Perhaps you cannot avoid an asshole entirely, especially at the workplace where you have to work directly with your toxic boss or coworkers. If you can't do options number 1 or number 2, you will get psychological damages inevitably. Even then, you can still suffer less by having uptime and downtime. When it's an uptime, you will need to encounter and confront an asshole at certain time of the day. If you are lucky enough, maybe an asshole is not acting like an asshole that day. But what if it's not the case? You gotta let it be, and don't try to hold on to the thing that you can't control. You can't control the mind of an asshole and stop them from acting the way they do. What you really need to take control of is yourself, your own mind. I know you don't suffer from assholes 24/7. That's why you do have a downtime. But if you don't agree with me and you don't believe you have a downtime, if you think that they are so terrible that they give you no downtime, then option number one must be the best one for you, without any doubt. And you should have decided to cut them off by now. But if you believe you have a downtime, you can choose to enjoy your downtime without any asshole around you. You can take a break, switch it off, like when you turn off the light. Stop thinking about them during this time and focus on doing things that makes you happy. Try doing something that helps calming your mind. It could be going for a walk, reading a book, meditation, or whatever hobby that you like to do. The downtime doesn't protect you from an asshole, but you can spend it to heal yourself from damages. By knowing uptime and downtime, you realize that even suffering from asshole is not permanent. It will come and go. When it happens, it happens. But when it goes away, take advantage of the downtime to recharge your mental energy. The next option, you can leverage power. From my experience, and assholes and bullies are somewhat similar. What do they have in common? Well, they tend to pick on people with less power than them. Those whom assholes perceive to be below or inferior. Yeah, just like a bully. You will never see any bully picking on someone stronger like Mike Tyson. When I say power, it doesn't have to always be physical strength. It can also be job title, position, or anything that you can use to compare between two persons. So what can you do specifically to leverage power? The simplest but might not be the easiest one is to make yourself way above an asshole. When you manage to make yourself outpower an asshole, they are less likely to pick on you. Like I said, it's easier said than done. So, what if you can't make it happen at a time? What else can you do? If you're not able to build up your own power, maybe you can rely on external power instead. If you know someone who is way above and superior to an asshole, you may convince that person to be on your side. This way you use someone else's power as a protection. An asshole will now need to think twice about crossing the boundary, because now they realize they can no longer attack you for free. They will need to pay the price for crossing your boundary. There is another thing that you can do, and this one is interesting. You can use collective power and moral standard in your favor. What is collective power? It's a collection of not just one individual power, but of powers from multiple people. Think of society. We have a set of rules and moral standards. when you act against this rule. People in the society will not treat you in a good way after you have done such a thing. You can think of it as a punishment. And this punishment is often powerful because it comes from multiple people. And that's the idea of collective power. Most of the time, how assholes mistreat you is often against the moral standards set by society. You can turn the entire society against an asshole by exposing their nasty behaviors, for example. Yeah, these are things that you can do about leveraging power. However, this option doesn't guarantee that assholes will never pick on you again. You can still suffer from damages on occasion, but at the very least, this option will make an asshole have a much harder time doing any harm on you, and as a result, you can suffer less from damages. Number 5. Fight. This option is not a good one, but you may still count on it if the options I mentioned above are not available. I do not recommend this option, and you shouldn't fight when it isn't necessary, especially when you can still rely on other options. But if you do need to fight, make sure to pick the right time and the right place. Fight only when you know how to exploit your enemy's weak spot. Let's think about in an extreme scenario. Let's say you are being outnumbered. If you charge them head on, you will lose certainly. Instead of relying on brute force, there is a way to get around it. You can challenge the big boss to get in the ring with you one-on-one. When you know the weakest link of your enemy's boss, that is the prestige. The boss doesn't want to look like a coward in front of his subordinates, so he has no choice but to accept your challenge. Now instead of dealing with the entire group, you only need to kick one person right in the ass. At the same time, you need to get yourself prepared for the fight, otherwise you have very high probability of losing. You also need to know when to stop to avoid getting too far past the point of no return. At that point, you will be unsure of what will happen next. You probably have to deal with arising problems more than you can handle. But knowing when to stop doesn't mean you should hold back your power. When it's time to fight, you still need to use 100% of your power. Once your enemy is down, your job is done. No need to continue the fight. You can see this option is very high risk, high reward. That's why I recommend this option as a last resort instead of the first choice. Option number 6. I don't know. The other thing I know is there are many more than 5 options. I let you decide what the option number 6 is going to be. Let me know in a comment. We have come to the end of asshole series. If you will ever encounter any asshole after this, I hope you own them like a champ. See you again next video.